Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Question Everything. This is a live broadcast that I am bringing you guys. And today's topic is going to be a little strange. Today, I'm actually going to be talking about Bob Lazar. Now, for those of you that do not know who Bob Lazar is, let me give you a little bit of backstory. Bob Lazar came out publicly in the 1980s. I want to say it was early 80s. Um, but he pretty much had stated that he had worked at a top secret facility in Nevada. It was actually in the same area as Area 51, but it was a sub part of Area 51 called uh, S4. And S4 stands for Sector 4. This gentleman had came out with a number of different claims. A lot of the claims were that he had back engineered UFOs that had been crashed. And there was a lot of controversy about some of his statements that he had made. And so people started digging and trying to find information on Bob Lazar, his background, and what was nuclear physics. Or I think he was a nuclear physicist, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and so what happened was this guy had came out with this radical claim, and he was what they would call a whistleblower. And he had stated that there were a lot of people that had tried to keep him silenced, and he saw a lot of things that he did not approve of and that he did not agree with. And so what he did was he said, I need to let the truth out. And so he went ahead and made his background and his observations public. And so there was a lot of controversy that followed Bob Lazar. And through the mid 90s, when he started really gaining some traction in the UFO and ufology community, people tried to start poking holes into his story and try to find out, okay, is this guy really who he says he is? And does he have the testimonies? Are they legitimate? Are they backed up scientifically? Are they backed up, with, people that can vouch for him and say, yeah, we were there and we did this and this and this. Um, and so Bob Lazar stated that he had back engineered UFOs that had crashed. They were recovered UFOs, and that he worked on a total of, I think, two models. He stated that he worked on a sports model and what a kind of common UFO, which was like the flying saucer, as he stated. So he made these statements. He said that the UFO ran on a element called element 115. Now, what was really funny was at the time that he was making these claims, there was another gentleman that was disclaiming and kind of, talking him down, pretty much saying, look, this guy's a kook. He's brilliant, he's smart, but he's not a genius, and he's not really who he says he is, because he's making up these claims that really don't add up scientifically. And that was actually a guy named Stanton Freeman. Stanton Freeman is he's also a nuclear physicist, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to remember the field of what these guys were in is kind of hard for me, but um, Stan Freeman is one of these guys that I believe that he got into the UFO and ufology um, kind of genre and research for the right reasons. But I think, unfortunately, for in his case, it's kind of led him astray. He's become what I would call a sellout, where he pretty much discredits everybody and pretty much takes his own word as the only true fact. And that, in a situation where you're trying to weigh out a lot of circumstantial evidence to get to some probable evidence that it could be, evidence of something supernatural or phenomenal. Uh, it kind of it's kind of hard to do that. You can't say I'm the one and only person that has the locked, section of this information on UFOs. It's just impossible. There's too much stuff. There's too many fakes. There's too many people that are smoking hashish. There are too many people drinking their own Kool-Aid. So the one thing about Bob Lazar that really came across to me when I was listening to him and watching videos that he had recorded back in the 80s and 90s was his sincerity, for one, and for two, his ability to recall circumstances the same way every single time. Now, one of the key things that makes a liar and a thief is because a liar will tell you a different story every single time, because most of the time they're trying to remember the lie that they told before, and then the next thing you know, it's embellished again, and then it's embellished again, and there's a new kind of like turn and twist on the lie every single time. Bob Lazar does not do this. Bob Lazar was not going after fame, fortune, and you hear genuine honesty in his voice. Now, people could say the same thing about Bill Clinton when he said, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky." Okay, when he made that statement, yes, he could genuinely make that statement, and a lot of people believed him with sincerity because they were like, "Oh, he's so sincere." But he's a liar, and there were key attributes that physical, like psychologists that pick up on that stuff, that are the purpose of what they do as a profession is to break down the physical mechanics of a person when they're telling a lie, and the attributes that go along with telling a lie, like looking away, pausing, certain things, twitches, little nuances that people do. And there have been a number of people that have came out and said that this guy seems to be telling the truth. Same thing with taking a lie detector test. He's taken 3 or 4 lie detector tests and has came out without a scratch. I mean, no, there's not there in a lie detector test. There's a false and there's a positive. So you can't have a false positive. It's one or the other, and there's really no. If it shows the signs and symptoms of you lying, then it's considered a lie. And he's done this numerous times, and nothing's happened. The guy has came out with unscathed without, they're like, well, we're not really sure because there's so many there's so many false and so many positives that he could be embellishing certain things. He could be lying about certain things. He could be telling the truth about certain things. It's not like that. It's a clear cut answer. And the guy, well, let's talk about element 115. So here you have an element that there's a lot of controversy around it. Okay. Um, Element 115 is supposedly on the actual periodic table, but it's considered an exotic or a non-terrestrial material or element. And they weren't sure if they'd ever obtain it, but they said, "Oh well, the possibility of 115, existing is a probability that we can't just say no, it doesn't exist." So they put it in the periodic table, but it was not in a found periodic um, element. And so you have people like Stan Friedman, who in the early 80s, when Bob Lazar was kind of coming out and making all these notes, and kind of turning heads with his story and showing up and doing appearances. And I don't want that to sound like he was going after a gold rush, or he was doing this stuff because he was trying to become big and famous and, propagate his lie. He was doing it because he wanted to spread it, and he figured if you magnify and dispense this story wide enough where enough people know about it, the chances of him getting killed and somebody not linking it directly to, okay, well then, the government took him out or whatever, is very, very low. And their probability of carrying out something on somebody that has such a big story that people are tuning into would actually probably be more safe than him being quiet about it and doing it maybe on a small local level, because then you're probably going to get taken out, or be visited, have your threats brought to you in some way, shape, or form. And so he was not going after, and he's made this statement multiple times. He's like, I'd rather people not believe me, but I still have to say what is the truth, and I still have to put it out there because it's the truth. So he was doing this big giant, he wasn't really touring a lot, but he was doing stuff to expand the presence and the knowledge of his story. And Stan Freeman's like, this guy's a liar. He checked up at his school, where he said he went to MIT, graduated from MIT. Stan Freeman's like, no, I went in and I checked that, and that's BS. He didn't go there. I couldn't find his teacher, but yet he knew teachers. He said that he worked for, what's the name of the jet propulsion laboratory? JBL. No, not JBL. I can't remember the name of it. The jet propulsion laboratory is in Alamos, I think. I'm not sure. I feel like an idiot when I say stuff like that. But anyways, he said he worked for a company. Stan Freeman said, well, I called the company and they don't have any record of you ever being an employee for that company. Well, then out of pure, okay, well, everybody keeps on questioning me on this, he actually brought a page of the actual phone directory, and it showed right there Bob S. Lazar, and showed his extension and everything. So he was showing counter points to Stan Freeman, saying, oh, well, they did this, and he didn't go to school here, didn't work here, he's not really a physicist or anything like that, he's just full of shit. Well, the problem is that if this guy was really going to be working at a top secret facility, if he was really going to be doing the stuff that's so unbelievably ridiculous to even think about, what makes you think that they want this guy to even exist as far as a paper trail? There are people that are under government protection. There are people that work in special fields like the CIA, NSA, stuff like that, that those people don't really exist on paper. Their whole life as an existence is really not there. And this isn't just stuff out of a movie. This is legitimate fact. You have the NSA. The NSA was so secretive that it took years for them to actually acknowledge that it even was an existence of the government. And so what do all those people say? Oh, well, I work for blah, blah, blah. There's no way of finding out if that person ever worked for the NSA. There's not like a directory. Those people are working for a top secret facility, a top secret department of the government that is completely subsidized so bad that they don't even exist. So the fact that you can't find a paper trail on this guy is actually not that surprising to me. Even his schooling. Well, if you want to discredit somebody, take away their academic accomplishments, take away their ability to have a degree to show, take away all that stuff. This guy lost his first wife. He had a divorce because all of the crap that was coming. I mean, and he even made a statement a few years back in an interview that was probably his first interview in probably 10, 12 years. And he made a statement. He was like, if people think that I did this for money and monetary gain, I would like them to come up and post up in a lawn chair in my front yard and see if there's a truck that comes and dumps money in my front yard every Wednesday, because it doesn't happen. The guy is not a multi-millionaire. He did not make a huge living off this. This actually destroyed his credit and his credibility more than it did anything else. But sometimes when the truth is the truth and the lie is a lie, you have to distinguish those two. And sometimes your name is going to be tarnished, and sometimes that's worth the price of which and what you are doing. You're just kind of like, there have been people that have revealed secret documents before that have done it not because they want to risk anything or put somebody else at risk, but because they need that stuff to be known. And the intricacies and the compartmentalization of the government is so strict in some of these branches that this stuff will never see the light of day if they don't have somebody come out and whistleblow on it. And so I feel like he's legitimate in what he's saying. I feel like he was a very convincing, and it was actually watching his interview was very scary for me, very scary, because I was like, this guy, I believe I'm hanging on to what this guy says because he was so real in what he was saying. And then come to find out in about 2011, element 115 was actually discovered. And the way that it was discovered was it was synthetically made in a lab. Now, they're talking on the molecular level. This isn't, in a teaspoon or in a jar or whatever. This is so minuscule. It's on the micro level. But they did in some way synthesize it and they made it. And that gives even more claim to what Bob Lazar said. Here you have this element that the chances of this element actually proving itself in physical existence anywhere in the United States, anywhere in the world, anywhere on the earth is, so minuscule. And here they make it. Now his statement was that they had a huge amount of this that was used to power the craft. Um, and in a couple of interviews, you can actually watch him as he's talking about it. And somebody asked him in the interview, they said, didn't you take a piece of that substance with you? And he's like, I'm not going to comment on that. I don't want to talk about it. So I'm not saying that that's the case, but I think it's really bizarre that question would have been diverted to him and question would have actually popped up to him if that guy didn't already know something that Bob Lazar, he was trying to get, I guess he was trying to get him on tape by saying it and on the record. But Bob Lazar, a very, very interesting individual. If you guys get the chance to check him out and watch some of the documentaries on him and his background, it's just very scary. It's very scary. This guy is not an idiot. And to further more back up and prove what he stated, there's a gentleman that just actually did a documentary that I haven't got a chance to check out yet, but this gentleman had actually found an individual that worked with him at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and was like, yeah, that's Bob. He didn't know him like, yeah, we went to lunch every day and I went over to his house and ate dinner and he went to my house and, we hung out, and it wasn't like that. But this was a guy that actually knew him, worked in the same lab as him, and knew that he was a nuclear physicist and knew that this guy is not a jackass. He's not full of shit. And that he was the legitimate thing. And that guy is actually supposed to be in this documentary, actually making statements about it. Now, whether they're going to have him shadowed out for his safety or not, I don't know. But, and then there was the other case. So you have a gentleman who comes out and says, yes, I knew Bob Lazar and all this stuff. Now he's actually working in contract with the U.S. government, making, I believe it's selling science equipment to the U.S. government. There was another part of his company that he had that was actually nuclear based, where he was making nuclear things. He was selling, I don't know the in-depth details, but he had a physical contract with the government. Now, if this guy was a freaking loon bag, how would he have a contract with the U.S. government? A lot of people are going, well, if he was part of the, the situation, with the U.S. government, if he really did what he did, why would they hire him? And I was like, well, there's a point to that. If they denied him a contract and he was one of the bidders on a contract for the U.S. government, it would almost confirm the idea that he worked for the government and he just divulged all this information. They don't have anything to do with him. The second possibility is that by having him work for the government as a contractor, that it kind of discredits him to a degree, but it also kind of confirms it to a degree. It's almost like, well, maybe that sector of the government that made the decision for the contract has nothing to do with the division that was actually hired him to do the contracting work where he was reverse engineering. So maybe those are two separate entities, and the one entity doesn't want to come in and say, don't hire that guy. And the other one's going, we're just going to keep our mouth shut. S4 is S4. We don't want to confirm nor deny anything. So we're just going to let them kind of do their own thing. That is probably the best case scenario out of the two ideas. But, anyways, that is pretty much the basis of what Bob Lazar has done, some of the things that he has talked about. And the guy is absolutely a genius. I mean, he built a hydrogen car. The guy had all kinds of cool stuff at his ranch out in the desert. This guy had brought out, I'm trying to remember his first name. Lear is his last name, but his father was the inventor of the Learjet. And this is a guy that used to fly for the CIA. He used to be a reconnaissance pilot, and he was very credible, very, very credible. He had a good long military career. And one night, Bob Lazar took him, I think it was his wife, and Bob Lazar and his wife, and they went out, and Bob Lazar took him out on an outskirt. No, actually, they actually broke the perimeter and actually came on the base, but on a far side, and kind of managed to kind of evade security. But they sat out there, and Bob's like, in about 5 minutes, this light's going to come up in the sky. It's going to sit there. It's going to do this and this and this and this, and then it's going to disappear. And this guy was like, the guy Lear, whatever his first name is, was like, okay, sure. He's like, make sure you bring your camera, have it ready to go. And sure enough, this thing does it. Well, okay, so if that was the case, and he'd say he worked at Area 51, and he knew that there was a test vehicle that was just some regular propulsion system that they were just going to do a roundabout test. Yeah, he could have known that, but I kind of highly doubt that. I kind of do. It's not something that I think that he would have down to a point where he would be like, oh, every single night on this time, on this date, it would do it. Then he brought him out a second time, and the same thing happened. And then the second time, at the end of the second occurrence, they had actually got caught, and he got in big trouble. And that was part of the process of him being ousted and kicked out of the program, and him actually quitting and going, I don't want to do this anymore. He stated that he was paid and has a W-2 form for his pay stubs and for his income tax that was given to him by the Department of Naval Intelligence. So there's a lot of credibility with this guy, and it's really stupid for people to say that this guy's just making shit up. That just, in your wildest dreams, you could not make up the shit that this guy has made up. And there's a lot of things that he states. And he says, oh, well, tell us about the aliens. Okay, well, I'll tell you what I've heard and what I've read in documents, debriefings. But I'm not going to tell you that I saw anything because I didn't see anything. And he sticks to that to just an absolute key and just a pinpoint. I like that, because he could say, oh, yeah, well, I had an encounter, but he's not going to say that because it didn't happen. So when he says all that stuff, it actually brings a lot to the table and makes me actually think, wow, this guy's really legit. So anyways, that's pretty much it. My little tidbit on Bob Lazar. The guy is amazing. I think you guys should sit down and check out his stuff. Make sure that you look at all of it. Look at the stuff against him also, and look at their counterpoints. And they're, in my opinion, they just don't stand up. This guy's got a impeccable reputation. His story has not changed in close to 30 years now. The guy's fantastic. I mean, his story stands above everybody else. I will listen to Bob Lazar's accounts and believe them more than anybody else. And that is discrediting a lot of people. People that say that they saw this and say that they saw that and they were there and they did this. I don't even believe 1/10 of them. But I do believe Bob Lazar. That guy's he's he's legit, and it's scary. So thank you guys for checking out this live stream. I apologize about not be doing this more often. I have a lot going on right now. I have another child on the way. It is going to be spotty. I do apologize about that, though. Thank you guys for checking out this video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you dislike it, thumbs down. Don't really care. Give me a comment, a question, concern. If you have it, leave it in the section below. And as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified for whenever I post a video. Thank you very much. And you guys have a fantastic night.